I want to make you aware that today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on OCALI's website for educational purposes. Today's session of Ask Abbey and Friends, Word Recognition Toolkit for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Learners is on cued speech. Our objectives today are to explain what cued speech is and who can benefit from the system, and list 3 ways that cued speech can be used to build phonemic awareness skills for deaf and hard of hearing learners. To present on this topic today, we have Dr. Jennifer Montgomery and Dr. Kathy Rasmussen. To start us off will be Dr. Montgomery.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Dr. Jennifer Montgomery. I'm an adjunct at Teachers College, Columbia University, and also I'm a teacher in the New York area. I've been using the cued speech system for about 20 years as a teacher of the deaf, and also have been a cued speech instructor. So I'm going to be discussing a little bit about what the system is and the background of the system. So what is cued speech, also called cued language? It's a system and communication modality to support literacy and phonological awareness by making spoken language visible. The system is called cued speech, but we use it to cue languages, to make languages visible. So it can be used for any traditionally spoken language, English, French, Spanish. The system is not limited to just English. What is cued speech, cued language? It's a communication mode that visualizes the sounds or phonemes of traditionally spoken language. There are 44 phonemes in English, and this is what the system looks like. So again, what is this cued speech, cued language system? There are 8 hand shapes that represent the consonant sounds, also called phonemes, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is hand shape 1, hand shape 2, hand shape 3, hand shape 4, hand shape 5, hand shape 6, hand shape 7, and hand shape 8. I can use either hand or I can use them both. The system also has 4 locations for the vowels. So by the mouth, by the chin, by the throat, and at the side. And then a hand shape plus a location together. So the hand shape clarifies the consonants. The location clarifies the vowel sounds. Together, when you put a consonant together with the vowel, it makes a syllable. And then you, with your natural mouth movements of a traditionally spoken language, a child can see what you're saying. And I have here an image of a cueing infant, and the image says, I can see what you're saying. So the cueing system makes everything you say visible. So why do students need a visual system? Why add cueing to the natural mouth movements of speech? Well, only 30% of spoken information is available through lip reading alone. The rest is guesswork, which can be difficult because many sounds look the same on the mouth. So for example, the phonemes m, b, and p. There would be no way to distinguish those sounds. But when you add the cueing, m, b, p, a student can distinguish which sound or phoneme you meant, whatever their hearing ability or amplification is. So cued speech eliminates ambiguity when lip reading. And there's an image here that says, can you trust your ears? So why was this cued speech system invented? A lot of people think that the system was invented to be some kind of speech or articulation system, and that actually isn't true. The system was created at Gallaudet University by a professor named Dr. Warren Cornett in 1966. And he wanted deaf students to have access to English phonology in order to become good readers. At the time in the 60s, they didn't understand that speech and language were two separate systems. They thought that they were the same thing. And now we've learned more that speech and language are not the same thing. And we're actually cueing language rather than cueing speech. You don't need spoken ability or to speak to use the system. It can be an entirely visible process. And on the page, on the page, it's an image of Gallaudet University and of the inventor Warren Cornett teaching the system to two other individuals. So again, why cued speech and cued language? The cueing system, cued speech, it supports access to English phonology at the sound level, syllable level, word, sentence, and connected speech level. There are a lot of other kinds of prompt systems out there, and the cueing system is the only one that I'm familiar with that can visualize all aspects of a phonology and phonological structure of a traditionally spoken language. Other cueing systems, like visual phonics, can provide access to phoneme information and can support the development of basic phonemic awareness. But cued speech can be used for individual phonemes, simple and complex words, as well as for connected language. And this is important for word recognition and language comprehension skills that are required for fluent reading. So what about cued speech and assistive technology? A lot of people will say, but with good assistive technology, that students can just use listening and spoken language, that they don't need a visual. I hear that a lot. But there is a scientific phenomena, which is really well researched in linguistics, called the McGurk effect, which proves that understanding speech is audio-visual. We all use visuals when we process spoken language. And in fact, 60% of communication is visual for everyone. And basically what the McGurk effect shows is that if someone says one sound and then you see something else happening on the mouth, you reinterpret it as a different sound. It just shows that we're influenced by what we see. That speech and language is not an auditory process. It's an auditory visual process. We all use facial expression and mouth information, what's seen on the lips, to understand what people are saying. And some students need more access to phonology than just their assistive listening devices. There is a range of benefit, and we want to make sure that every child, whatever their range of benefit, has access to the phonology of a traditionally spoken language so that they can become good readers just like their peers. So is cued speech hard to learn? I hear this a lot, that, well, it's hard to learn and I want to do something that's easier. So the system can be used immediately to clarify individual sounds. So I have an example here of images, the cue for B and the cue for D. So you can easily look at the chart and pick a sound that you want to show. You can show the the B, the P. It does take more time to learn it at a connected speech level. Generally, we say it takes approximately 20 hours or a weekend to learn the system with proficiency at the connected speech level, but you can use the chart immediately to clarify individual phonemes. So what is the evidence? So cued speech has been used successfully for 50 years in the US and around the world. And research demonstrates that adding cued speech supports phonological awareness, spoken language comprehension, rhyming, and literacy in deaf students. Recently, a national survey by the National Center for Hearing Assessment and Management reported that 12% of families in the US were using cued speech with their children, while 12% used ASL. So about the same number of families used each visual at home. And I think sometimes I'll hear, well, people aren't using cued speech, or I haven't heard of it, but in a national survey, it was about 50-50 for cued speech and American Sign Language. And research demonstrates that all children need phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, alphabetic principle, accuracy and fluency with text, and comprehension to develop reading skills. That this isn't just for hearing children. This is for all children need access to the same skills. So just because you're deaf or hard of hearing doesn't mean you can't access these skills, and doesn't mean that you shouldn't. And I think there's a big belief out there that deaf children should learn differently. There's a lot of research articles out there that deaf children are different learners. And what we know from research is that actually really strong readers, whatever their background, are all using these same skills. And that as educators, we can provide that visually the same way to any student using the cued speech system. So who can benefit from cued speech? Parents of infants can communicate in their home language right away. And I have an image of a cueing infant. You parents don't have to learn a new language. They can use the same language in their home and supplement it with the cued speech system. The position of the National Cued Speech Association is multilingualism. So we would encourage families to also learn sign language. It really can be used in conjunction with other approaches, but parents can start cueing their home language right away. So who else can benefit from cued speech? Pre and post implantation and amplification to support listening and spoken language. The system complements and clarifies the message from assistive technology. So sometimes I hear that if you add a visual, that students won't use their assistive technology, and we know from studies that that isn't the case, that actually cueing by complementing it, that it actually supports audition rather than taking away from audition. And so that's some kind of a misconception that's out there in the field. But the cueing system gives you access to the target language before you've even had assistive technology or along with assistive technology. Students won't stop using their tools just because you're adding a visual. So others who can benefit from cued speech, let's say school-age students, you can use it to support phonological awareness. You can use it to support articulation by showing students which phoneme was intended. You can use it during phonics and literacy, so students have a target to match to the print. During English language instruction, to show grammatical morphemes and sentences and what the language looks like at the connected level. And then for multisensory reading programs, for struggling readers, you can use it along with programs that have structured phonological reading systems. And here I just have on the page, I have a teacher cueing with a student. I have a multisensory activity, a student's drawing in sand, and it says cat. And then I have a picture of a letter board where students often have to manipulate letter sounds, and the cueing system can be used right along with multisensory programs. So where can cued speech be used? The system can be used in addition to the public schools or residential programs. It can be used in bilingual programs and residential schools. It's been adapted to 60+ languages and dialects and can be used without technology, and it can be used both in homes and social environments. And here I have images of cueing being used in international schools. So cued speech has been brought recently to Ethiopia. There's an image of it here being used in the UK, and then it's also being used in Pakistan.
So I'll take over now. I'm Dr. Kathy Rasmussen, and I'm at Nazareth College in Rochester, New York. And I'd like to start us thinking about the science of reading. And we know from the science of reading that there are two major strands, two major threads that go together to produce fluent reading. These include the concepts of language comprehension and word recognition. Language comprehension includes ideas like background knowledge, vocabulary, language structure, verbal reasoning skills, and literacy knowledge. Word recognition skills include things like phonological awareness, like decoding and sight recognition of familiar words, the sight word vocabulary. Kids start out with very basic level skills in these areas, and then they become increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic to lead to skilled reading. Which in skilled reading means fluent execution and coordination of language comprehension and word recognition. And we have an image here of these skills being woven together into a strong strand, a strong thread, a strong cable of all these skills. And so for all of these skills, cued speech can visualize and be used instructionally for all these areas in the science of reading. So one especially important component skill, phonology. Why do we need phonology? So research says that all strong readers need phonemic awareness, phonics and the alphabetic principle, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Cued speech provides us the ability to visualize the phonology, the sound structure of any spoken language to give readers access to literacy fundamentals. There's an image here, a chart of basic phonemic awareness skills going from simplest to most complex, starting with phoneme isolation, blending, segmentation, addition, deletion, and substitution. All of these skills can be targeted with cueing. I will just say here, some people use the term phonological awareness to describe the broad skills of identification and manipulation of units of spoken language, words, syllables, rhyme, and then use the term phonemic awareness as the ability to focus on individual sounds. I think these terms really overlap and often use the terms interchangeably. So what is phonemic awareness? It's the conscious awareness of the sounds or phonemes of language and the explicit understanding that words are made up of sounds and phonemes. Phonemic awareness is a significant predictor of reading skills. And here we've mentioned again some of those phonemic awareness skills: rhyme, same difference, the ability to blend and segment and manipulate. That comes from several sources. We were thinking about Marilyn Adams' important work and the National Reading Panel summary of all the important skills that children need in order to read. Access to the basic building blocks of spoken language, phonemes, phonemic awareness, is critical to learning to read. So what's typical developmental sequence for phonemic awareness? Starts with sound awareness, playing with sound, a beginning sense of rhyme, and then leads to the ability to identify the beginning sounds of words and identify final sounds and vowels, and then eventually being able to manipulate sound sequences to delete the initial sound or the final sound, moving sounds around to make new sequences. We know that, and we will be talking more about how cued speech is your ace. It provides visual access to phonemes that is clear and efficient. So being able to receive sounds, phonemes visually ensures access to the basic building blocks of spoken language. And as Jen said before, while cueing was developed for use with deaf children, we know that it's phonemic awareness. We can aid phonemic awareness for all children, particularly those who may have literacy difficulties. So let's think about how we can use cues for phonemic awareness. So we can cue to children, use it as a receptive tool. And I have an image here of a deaf parent cueing to his toddler daughter. So we know that we can use cues to develop skills of phoneme reception, awareness, discrimination, and identification. But in addition to being able to use it receptively, we can also have children cue expressively. And this helps them to be able to sequence phonemes, to blend phonemes, to delete phonemes, and to manipulate them, those phonemic awareness skills that we talked about. So Jen is now going to demonstrate these examples of phonemic awareness skills.
Thank you. So we start off with sequencing phonemes, and we can say to kids, say k, act, k, act, cat. We can tell kids we're going to blend the sounds p, ul, a, p, ul, a, play. We can tell kids we're going to try to delete a sound. Can you change block to lock? Block to lock? And we can have kids manipulate phonemes. Can you change hat to bat? Hat to bat.
Okay, just an example of a cute speech phonemic awareness activity, using cues to develop the awareness and increase the awareness of rhyme, which is a very important phonemic awareness skill. Cued words rhyme visually. And we have an example here. We have words on the board in this image of cat, hat, and bat. So Jen, can you demonstrate cat, hat, and bat?
Sure. Cat, hat, cat, hat, bat.
Showing rhyme visually makes the concept of rhyme more accessible, more concrete. You can highlight sets of rhyming words like we've just done with mat, cat, bat, boy, soy, toy. Any set of rhyming words are easy to demonstrate, easy to show the rhyming pattern. You can provide a rhyme pattern, have children change the initial sound to make a new word using their expressive cueing skills. This is a really good place to note how useful it is to have a tool that lets us show rhyme, show how words sound. Spelling patterns in English have such inconsistent pronunciations. Think about the sequence, the letters O-U-G-H. We pronounce those a lot of different ways in English. They can be through, or tough, or cough. The spelling doesn't help us understand the word's phonemic structure, but when we cue, we can show that. So let's think about cueing for word recognition and language comprehension. We can use cueing to blend sounds together to make syllables and words. This is really easy to do with cues. We can cue and children can cue consonant vowel syllables, simple CVC words, complex words, and connected language. Jen, want to show off your cueing skills?
Sure. Okay, so may and bay, may, bay, simple CVC words, cat, dog, top, rat, complex words like the science of reading, the science of reading, and connected language. Thank you for this opportunity, Ohio.
It's easy to incorporate cute speech into any multisensory reading curriculum you're using. Using cueing for visual access to phoneme information allows us to convey the vocabulary, the grammar, the semantics and syntax of spoken language. So as we come to the end, we're thinking about building language skills for fluent reading. So recall the science of reading that we talked about. We thought about language comprehension, including background knowledge, vocabulary, language structure, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge, and word recognition, phonemic awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. All of these skills are necessary for fluent reading. Cued speech can target all of these component skills, and it provides us a great tool for visual access to support the development of skilled and fluent readers. So here we have some resources, some articles that outline the importance of phonemic awareness in reading and some of the evidence for cued speech for supporting phonemic awareness. We have the Maryland Adams article from 1990, Lasasso, Crane, and Libert, who looked at the support for cued speech for rhyme and the effective exposure to cued speech for that skill. We've also included the National Reading Panel that talks about the importance of all the component skills for reading and the implications for reading instruction. An article from 2017 by Bev Trzeciak about using cued speech for the development of reading skills. And we've also included the National Cued Speech Association website as a place for more information and more resources. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our two very knowledgeable presenters, and they will be here with you for just a couple more minutes to answer some of your questions through the chat. So go ahead and type those in, and we will answer any questions you have about cued speech and word recognition skills. Thank you so much, and visit us at OCALI at www.ocali.org.